Hello everyone, it's Shel from Paper Rock Teal Studio, and today I'm sharing with you my first creative arts collaboration event for 2017. This is the January event, and it's focused on the Pantone color of the year, which is Greenery this year. A very nice spring green that brings the idea of forests and coolness and calmness, in my opinion. And I really like the color. I'm happy that this is the color of the year. I didn't really like the ones last year. So what I did was just get out a bunch of different products that I thought were in that green family and just playing with them. And while I'm doing it, I'm making the tag for the Tag It Tuesday group as well, which the challenge this month was to use modeling paste through a stencil. So I did that. I used modeling paste through a stencil. And then the rest of the time I'm just messing around. I put the stencil back on and put some white gesso over the puffed up areas of the modeling paste because I was trying to seal it a little bit and maybe create a bit of a resist, because I knew I was going to be putting other stuff over the top and I wanted it to resist the colors that I was putting on, hopefully. So that's why you see me putting the stencil back over it and then putting gesso on. So then I have a few Tattered Angels mists here, and I thought that they really closely matched the color. And one of them is called Moss and the other one is called, oh my gosh, I've forgotten. But I'll put all the links below to the colors that I used. Another thing that Pantone handed out when they handed out their color of the year was this little chart that you see on the right hand side, focusing on some of the other colors that they are releasing this year and how they go with the color of the year. And I thought this other vine green, I think maybe it is, something like that, looked like the color of kale, which is what they called it on the Pantone. And then Greenery looked like the moss. And so I was going to use those two together to do like a monochromatic look with the color. And so I started out with the darker one that I thought looked like the color kale. And then I wanted the leaves to be the lighter color. So again, I went back over with some gesso, trying to lighten up the leaves again. By the way, this works. If you take a straight pin and you stick it down in the nozzle of a clogged up sprayer, it actually works. One of my viewers told me that, and it totally works. I have so many clogged up ones, and that totally works. So get a sewing straight pin and put that in your studio if you're going to use ink sprays. But that's off topic. Anyway, so I went over only the leaf portion, the raised portion, with the lighter color. It didn't really make that much of a difference. So I ended up lightening it up a different way. Of course, these are the shimmer mists, the Glimmer mists, which have shimmer, and you can't really see it on the screen, but it's nice and shimmery. Then I decided to play around with the colors and figure out what exact color this is, or close enough. I think that the green gold by both the Deco Art and the golden, which is, a standard color, is pretty darn close to Greenery, but it needs a little bit more blue. So I added in some London blue and then mixed it. It was too dark, so then I added in some more green gold, and it was about the right tone, but it was still dark, so I added in white, titanium white, to make it, a lighter shade. And I think I got pretty close to at least my printed out version of, that would be the RGB version of the color. And then I sponged that over the top through the stencil to try to lighten up the leaves a little bit. Then they, of course, because I used acrylic paint, they look flat. So then I have a couple of the Glimmer mists from Tattered Angels that have just glimmer, just mica in them and no color. And I have one that's a pearl, a white silvery pearl, and then I have another one that's like a golden shimmer, and the golden one looked really nice over this, so I just sprayed it with that. So if you have a Glimmer mist that doesn't have a color, you're in good shape, because even if you use something that doesn't have Glimmer mist, you can still make it shimmery by using those mists. Very handy. So then I decided to find out if any of my archival inks matched the Kale or the Greenery, and I thought that they did. Two of them are a pretty good match. And again, I will list those below in the description box because I don't know off the top of my head as I'm doing this voiceover what colors they are. But pretty happy that those matched as well. I think this is a really good universal color. Not too specific. You know, it's right in the range of a lot of the paints and inks and sprays that we have already. So I used the French script stamp and stamped a little bit of script on that right hand side using the darker of the two colors, and that worked pretty good. So then I decided I needed to do some sponging, and I started with the darker color and it didn't look right, so I switched to the lighter color, but I did realize that my sponge had a little bit of blue on it, so that's probably why it looked weird. But just sponging around the edges to give everything a border. And I didn't have a plan for this. I was just playing. I was trying to, play with the color and see what I could make while making a tag for Tag It Tuesday group on Facebook as well. Because, I like to kill two birds with one stone. If I can get two things done at once, that's great. So I decided to lighten up the leaves a little bit with some Inca Gold so that they stand out from the background a little bit more. And then I used Pipette and went in with a darker color again, that more olivey color, and which matches the Kale from the Pantone, and added in some more dark around to really make these leaves stand out. This is 140-pound cold pressed watercolor paper, so it does absorb. I didn't put any gesso or anything, so it absorbs the wet stuff quite a bit and makes it lighter. So that's why I thought I needed another layer. And you can really start to see a lot of the gold colored shimmer around the leaves. That's from that darker Glimmer mist. Then I decided to make some little embellishments to go on my tag, and this is shrink plastic, and it's the one that's not white but more like a clear, and then I sanded it really well so that it would accept color using a sanding block, and then I'm just sponging through the stencil again with my two colors of archival ink and just light sponging with the artist sponge. And then I've got some leaves to cut out, so I just cut those out very quickly. I didn't, really worry too much about the edges. I wanted it to just be cut out all the way around, and that was it. And then I used my Crocodile to punch holes in them. Remember when you're using shrink plastic that it's going to shrink down to 60% of its size, so your hole needs to be big enough that it doesn't shrink into nothing. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make, The hole, they punch a small hole thinking, oh, here's my small hole, and then by the time the thing is shrunk, there's no hole at all. So I used the biggest one on the Crocodile to make my hole. And I just used my heat tool to shrink those. And then that's some cute little embellishments. And then I used some of that clear with gold Glimmer mist to make them shimmery. I had to dry them with the heat tool because I'm impatient. A little bit more Inca Gold, You can never have enough Inca Gold. I was trying to show you the shimmer on those, but I couldn't really get it close enough to the camera. So then I pick my backing to be a piece of metallic gold cardstock, and because there's just most of the mica in the products that I used from Tattered Angels are gold, so it worked really well. It was very pretty with it. And I think I'm representing the color Greenery pretty well at this point, and a little bit of the Kale as well, which is another one of their new colors. Which I find funny because Kale is like all the rage as far as, healthy eating right they just, you want to eat kale because it's good for you, good fiber, good vitamins, da 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 da, and then Pantone comes out with a color named kale. I find that amusing, but it's just me. Oh, I thought I was going to use some PBO paint, but then I ended up using some more Glimmer mist. I guess I was having a Tattered Angels day. Lots of Glimmer mist today. So I decided I needed to add something to the tag, a focal point. So I got out a couple stamps, a leaf one and a kind of a sketchy flower. And I'm using pigment ink and then embossing powder to make my lines so they look like gold lines basically. I already had heat tools and everything going, so I might as well emboss as well while I'm at it. Sure, why not? And then the color, that little color chart that showed coordinating colors, it had a light pink. And so I think it's called something pearl, something blush pearl or something like that. And I had a Glimmer mist that actually is almost exactly that color. But I wanted to add a little bit of darker color inside the petals, so I used another pink to with it to color my flower. And then a little bit of orange in the center to make the flower a little bit different. And then I'm just going to use those same two colors that I used on the tag to color my leaves. And I'm going to cut these out and apply them to the tag using dimensional foam, otherwise known as carpet tape. Makes it stand up from the tag a little bit, which is kind of cool. My only opposition to this stuff is that I have to peel the backing. I really don't like to peel things, people. In the last day I've peeled way too many things and I'm just not into it at all. So about 2/3 of the way down, or 1/3 of the way up, whichever you want to look at it, that's where there's kind of a magic spot that I'm going to place my leaves and then my flower on top. So the leaves will stick out from the card and then the flower will be doubly sticky outy from the tag. Did I say card? This is not a card, it's tag. It could be a card though. It would make a beautiful card. Just make it a little bit shorter and a little bit wider. So I was pretty happy with that. Then I decided I needed a word or words. Oh no, that's no words yet. Okay, still putting on my little charms. And after I made my charms, I realized I could have colored them on the back as well by just lining up the stencil. Since it wasn't the white shrink plastic, it's the see-through, little bit see-through shrink plastic. I could have colored the backs too, and then I wouldn't have to fuss about if they're flipping themselves over or not. Yeah, I should have done that. That would have been smart. Because I could do that because the stencil is, what would be the word for it? It's the same front ways or back ways. It's not like it's like a curly leaf that curls in one direction and if you flip it over it's the opposite direction. And actually it's a stencil anyway, so you could just flip it over. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. I definitely could have colored the backs of my leaves exactly the same way that I colored the front. And I should have. So here's where I'm looking for some kind of word to put on there. I've got some different stuff on a shelf next to me and I'm getting it out. I decided to use some letter stickers that are like little gold dots. And I decided to do the word bloom because I had a flower and a leaf, and so that seemed appropriate. Couldn't do it crossways, so then I had to put it up and down. My mother, who's a retired elementary teacher, gets very annoyed by things that if you make words up and down instead of sideways, she thinks they're hard to read. And then to finish it off, I have my gold cord, and then I also got out some seam binding. This is stuff that quilters use, and it's just plain white, but you can spray it with Glimmer mist. And so I used the peachy and the pink color and sprayed it so that it matches my tag. And then I thought, I need another one. And so I got another one and sprayed it with the greens and a little bit more gold cord too. Be sure to check out the hashtag event, hashtag color of the year. And if you type that into your search bar, you'll come up with all different types of artists doing all different types of art from the Creative Arts Collaboration. And of course, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, comment so I know you were here, subscribe if you haven't already, and share if you want to. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.